I'll open the meeting because the first thing we actually need to do is appoint chair, because Helen Councillor Walker is no longer a member. So if I could
nominate Councillor Denton.
Okay.
I'll put myself forward.
Yeah, we need a seconder. If someone could just second it from. Thank you. All those in favour? Hand over to yourself now, Neil.
Welcome, councillors, officers, members of the public. Is there public on?
Not today.
Not today, no. Exactly. Reminder to switch off our mobile phones. I'll do that myself in a minute. As I'm silence. If there's any members of the public attending, then please do the same. Switch off the microphones, cameras, etc. Is it being recorded as well?
It is being recorded, yeah.
This meeting has been recorded today and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. Reminder to councillors present, ensure those attending virtually and those persons can hear proceedings for capture the entire meeting. Please ensure that you project your voice, which I'm trying to do with my sore throat, and speak clearly. Please remember it's a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to each other by first names. There's no fire alarm planned, therefore, upon hearing a fire alarm, leave the building via the nearest exit and assemble at the top of the car park. So, agenda. Apologies for absence.
I have no apologies, Chair.
Thank you. To approve the correct recordings for the 25th of January 2024. Thank you. Yeah, we're okay. Yeah. Items brought forward an opinion of the chair and should be considered as a matter of urgency. Are there any matters of urgency? Declarations of interest.
I've received none, Chair.
Thank you. To agree between Part A and Part B, confidential restricted information.
Chair.
No Part B, no. That's right. Okay, thank you. So, Part A, number 7, building control business update. Report by building control manager.
Chair. Yeah, hopefully we'll have a chance to read my report, but I'll sort of run through the key sections and the main points really, and a couple of small updates to bring to your attention. And so first, in regard to the key performance indicators, application numbers and income, performance remains at a consistent level and below the anticipated targets. The average first time to first response being 17 days, which is set against a target of 10 days. And with the 3-week response sitting at 83%, set against a target of 95%. Our share of the housing market, our share of housing market completions is lower 18% and reflects the reduction in smaller housing developments and progress in the past months. Although we have seen 2 medium-sized housing developments start within the partnership in the last month. With regard to recording numbers of applications mentioned in the report, I'd like to apologise and draw your attention to an error. The report records that application numbers at the end of the fourth quarter were 1,303. The correct figure for the end of the financial year was actually 1,035. Finance will report on the overall financial picture when it's available. And despite the drop-off in application numbers compared to previous years, our market share remains consistent. For the final quarter was 75%, giving an average for the financial year of 74%.
Oh, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Morning is a bit of a premium this morning, isn't it?
It's been encouraging that the final quarter of last year did show signs of a recovery in terms of income, with just under £150,000 worth of income being received over the last 3 months. I think, however, it's too early to say this can be taken as an indication that the sector has turned a corner, and we'll take a view on this after the end of the first quarter. It has been apparent that amongst the applications we've received since the new year, that there's been an increasingly larger number of domestic projects that are more complex, more commercial work, and also increased activity in the new build housing sector. And as I've already mentioned, in the housing sector, in partnership, we've seen 2 medium-sized housing developments start in Braunton and Chivenor. The one in Braunton, I think, is about 40 units, and the one in Chivenor is 80 units. So moving on to the resourcing, our vacant trainee position has now been filled, and the successful candidate started with us on the 15th of April. Our new recruit has already registered as a Class 1 inspector, and HR have registered our interest for a distance learning levy-funded building control degree at Wolverhampton University, with the intake starting in September. Our trainee has started working with the technical support team 3 days a week and is shadowing inspectors 2 days a week. Our trainee is also undertaking topical assignment work set by myself with the view to having him ready for the university course and to build his general background knowledge. Also, since the last meeting, our vacant North Devon senior role has been filled by an internal candidate. And the BC officer vacancy this has left has been advertised, and we've had interviews taken place with a successful candidate accepting the offer. The successful candidate will be starting with us on the 13th of May, and our new recruit will also register as a Class 1 inspector as a mature entrant with experience will work for the supervision towards submitting a portfolio of work for validation and then sit the validation exam to achieve Class 2A domestic inspector status. So our successes in the recruitment market leave us with just one single vacant Mid-Devon senior role. As a result, we continue to use the services of one agency inspector, and this arrangement has approval until the end of June 2020. It is anticipated training for the new technical support recruits will be completed by July. And until this time, the technical support teams will continue to be supported by Mid-Devon Planning Technical Support with our application processing. As previously reported, the 10% market supplements will be phased out at the end of June for the Mid-Devon employees. Removing the supplement will place the Mid-Devon partnership salaries in the 4th quartile when comparing them to the local authority building control salaries in the southwest. We are currently undertaking with the Mid-Devon inspector positions a job re-evaluation process with a view to closing the 10% gap. Moving on to building control charges, we have introduced a new set of charges as of the 1st of April, and the new charges represent a 6.7% increase on last year's scheme, and that increase is across the board. The other charging area to report upon is the building safety regulator hourly rates across board partnerships. So applications for in-scope work, which applies to buildings that contain 2 or more residential units with a floor height above 18 metres, or a care home or hospital with a floor above 18 metres, must now be submitted through the regulator. From the 6th of April, Class 3 registered inspectors may be required by the building safety regulator to become part of a multidisciplinary team to check in-scope buildings where required to do so. And where required to do so, the employing local authority will be able to recover the costs based on hourly rates. The partnership has recently reviewed its hourly rates for the BSR, and this has now been submitted for this financial year, and that rate will be set at £83.52. Moving on to the validation and building safety regulator registration process, 5 out of the 6 current permanent building inspectors have received their results and passed the 2nd stage of the validation process, with 1 inspector still waiting on his results. Inspectors are now in the process of upgrading their class to a proven competency with the building safety regulator, which currently stands at 1 Class 3 specialist, Class 4 technical manager, 1 Class 2B general inspector, and 3 Class 2A domestic inspectors, with 1 result pending for a further Class 2B general inspector. Regarding an update on the building safety regulator, while the partnership has been successful in being able to validate 5 out of 6 inspectors with 1 result pending, the picture across the industry is far less positive. Validation bodies have been overwhelmed by the volume of submissions from building inspectors, and there are reports that many professionals have not yet engaged with the registration process at all. As a result, just days before the 6th of April deadline, the BSR announced a delay to the registration deadline, with transitional arrangements being introduced. The new deadline date for registration is the 6th of July 2024. A training update for the partnership. The building safety regulator requires the partnership to have action plans, training plans, and CPD logs in place for each employee and keep them updated. So now the validation results are largely known, the training programs for individuals will be updated. Recently, the building control manager has received his results from the completed level 6 course in public service building control management and passed with a merit. The uniform systems administrator courses for the technical support team leader have also now been completed, and the level 6 legislative compliance course for the Mid-Devon assistant surveyor is coming to a close, and the results will be known in a few weeks. And finally, the technical support team leader has been booked on a level 3 technical support course which starts in the summer. Okay, so moving on to the building safety regulator operational standards and upgrades to uniform. It's been frustrating that the partnership did not receive the IDOCS BSR module upgrade until the 3rd week of March, leaving us precious time to make the required changes to our back office systems to be ready for the 6th of April deadline. While the required changes have been communicated to the team, with such little time to prepare, it is inevitable that the data will not be recorded as consistently and as accurately as it could have been, with a longer leading time for the team to become familiar with what is required. The last minute changes that we have had to make have included a further amendment to the partnership application form to capture construction type and resubmissions. Changes to the uniform and the BSR module allow the partnership to now enter duty holder information, building height, when previously these had to be recorded on DMS since the 1st of October. But now the module is available, we can record them on the system as was originally intended. Most recent changes to the back office processes are significant, and the partnership has created and distributed guidance notes to both the technical support team and building inspectors to assist them with entering data at the appropriate time and into the correct place. Moving on to the performance standard reporting, the BSR will require it of us. Despite extending the registration deadline for inspectors, the BSR has not announced a delay in the requirement for building control bodies to submit the required new KPI data at the end of 2024-25. The BSR are also currently advising shared services like ourselves will be required to submit data individually for each partnership authority, in the same way that authorities are required to do so for P2 housing returns. It has been formally reported to members by the LABC that the BSR does not yet have a reporting system in place, and that they are unlikely to have one in place by the end of June. However, as it stands, the BSR still expect building control bodies to capture and submit the new KPI data in early July. Currently, there is no in-house service or authority-wide expertise to provide the required reports to submit this data. Technical support team leader has just completed the uniform administrator Microsoft Access training, but it is not anticipated that the knowledge gained here will be sufficient for him to complete the report writing requirements without further support or consultant. Having approached IDOCS, the partnership has been advised that while they have given the BSR an undertaking to prepare reports, IDOCS have not yet written them themselves to enable authorities to report the new information now being captured. So the partnership has requested and is waiting on a quotation from IDOCS to produce these reports in a consulting capacity. Until an automated reporting system is in place, partnership staff will manually record the data required to spreadsheets so that we are in a position to submit the information at the end of June, assuming the deadline is not extended. Data capture requirements are significant and require all team members to spend significant amounts of time recording the new information to Uniform and to the spreadsheets for the time being. As a result, the team will require up to an additional 5 hours a week per employee to capture this data. Therefore, additional hours have been agreed in the form of overtime until an automated system is in place or confirmation the data capture deadline has been delayed. The spreadsheets that we have created for individual authorities are for staff to record the data as they process the various activities from processing an application from validation through to completion. And the main stages or the processes that we are going to have to record this information are validation, plan examination, decisions, inspections, completions, enforcement, complaints, and initial notice processing. And finally, the LABC, obviously we work under the LABC quality framework, and the LABC released the changes to the ISO quality framework just a day before the 6th of April deadline on the 5th. And the idea is being that they brought the quality assurance accreditation in line with the BSR requirements. So it will be now our task for the partnership to review and re-engage with the platform, make the appropriate adjustments to our back office systems, and then operate in accordance with those confirmed changes. That completes my report.
Thank you. That's, as usual, that is a very comprehensive report. I can see how, reading through that last night again, I can see how big the challenges are. Has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask first before?
I've got a couple of things on you. On the KPIs, the time to first response, is that working days or just days? So it's working days for 4 weeks ish. Yeah. Okay. And how does that link in with the examination percentage within 3 weeks?
So they're kind of linked, but in terms of our first response, when we receive an application, there's one of two things that would happen. Obviously, the inspector would check the application, and if everything was in place, they would approve it at that point.
Yeah.
That could be deemed as a first response, or obviously if there's insufficient information in place,
Yeah.
they will write a letter which is called an amendment request.
Yeah.
And that would deemed to be the first response.
Okay. So what's the examine bit mean? So that's
So
they look at it, don't
yeah,
necessarily respond.
No, so
Okay.
in terms of when we were performing much better when we were fully staffed, we were obviously achieving a turnaround time of around 8 or 9 days. So the two were, they kind of do overlap.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, just one more on the BSR reporting. Have they got KPIs as well? And do these match in with those? Or do you just not
they're
know?
completely separate. Some new KPIs which are in relation to ensuring that, not necessarily in terms of timescale,
Right.
to ensure that we're doing their job correctly.
Okay.
And there are about 40 new KPIs.
How many?
About 40, and they're split across those
Yeah.
headings that I gave.
Yeah.
They're split across those, so from validation through to completion, to make sure that we're doing a job as the BSR anticipate that we will be. But unfortunately,
Okay.
the new KPIs that they've created are fairly vague. And having spoken to the Southwest Manager Group, everybody's interpreting slightly differently what they're expecting. So the BSR are going to get some horrific data back that they're not really going to be able to make too much sense out of, I suspect.
Yeah. Okay.
But until and there are some KPIs in there that will probably be removed.
So
But I think there's going to be obviously going to have to be a couple of rounds and a couple of perhaps 6 or 7 authorities audited before they get to the bottom of what they actually really want to know.
Once Chair, once something is so unfocused as having 40 KPIs, That's just crazy.
I mean, the spreadsheets that we've created, there's one spreadsheet for each of those processes for each authority. And within each of those spreadsheets, there's probably 6 or 7 items that we're recording. So not all of them are recording a KPI to the regulator, but it's capturing information that we're interested in as well.
Sorry, Councillor. Sorry, I can't remember your second name.
Simon by name, Simon by nature, Clist.
Clist. Sorry, yeah, I know the first name, but yeah.
Once seen, never forgotten, they say, but
It's the introduction where we can't be informal and use first names.
I see.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
No. Going back to page 18, just for a little bit of comparison, and thank you for producing this. I've noticed that once you read through it, you can't sleep afterwards, can you? Because it's journey. So thank you for trying to cure my insomnia, but it hasn't worked. Building control charges 6.7% across the board. That compares really well to the private sector.
It's quite difficult to give you that information because unlike us, they don't have to advertise their charges. And but obviously we keep a close eye on the market share, and that has been fairly consistent even throughout our challenging period. But clearly, we keep increasing our charges. There does come a point where the customer might, it's one of those services where if we can continue to provide a good service, customers probably won't look elsewhere.
That's right.
But clearly there is a ceiling to anybody's prepared to pay for a service. So we do have to be mindful that we can't just keep popping up the percentage on top.
The subtlety of my question hadn't escaped you. Thank you. Obviously, following on, it's the same that's applicable for the hourly rate, 83.52. That is a good comparison with the.
Again, I mean, I've attended a couple of managers' meetings across that have been countrywide rather than southwest, and that rate does vary greatly across authorities. Some of the London authorities are charging £124 an hour, but clearly they're paying their surveyors a significant amount more than we are. But I think some of them have perhaps used a little more artistic license in how they've actually calculated the charge.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just thought it was worth mentioning as well, Andy. It's probably about 12 or 18 months ago that we did quite a comprehensive benchmark across the other LABC or the other building control organisations, Simon, in the southwest.
Yeah.
And actually, in terms of our charges, what that demonstrated was we were certainly upper quartile, weren't we? We were higher than average, but certainly not the highest. It felt competitive still, and as Andy said, the market share is the key thing. The other thing, of course, is I think £80 makes us sound incredibly cheap, and for Andy's skill set, that seems incredibly undervalued.
Yeah.
But we followed, as John will be pleased to hear, the guidance that we were given by the BSR in terms of what we were allowed to include within that charge. So in calculating that, we can be confident that if somebody asked us to validate that, we'd be absolutely fine.
Thank you.
Interestingly, just as a note, I attended another meeting last week, and the LABC had advised that the BSR will be charging an hourly rate for auditing local authorities and private inspecting authorities, and their rate's going to be about £125 an hour. It'd be interesting to know how they.
Thank you.
Like you say, sat behind the charge of 83, there is a clear breakdown for that. So if we were ever challenged and asked how that figure's made up, then there's clear transparency in that.
I'd anticipated you tell us that. Thank you.
Slightly different angle on the private sector. You managed to get through the gateway of accreditation and qualifications. So well done for achieving that. How about the competitors?
I think the competitors are obviously they're not using the local. Obviously, we have a local authority validation process that through this first cycle has been government funded. So most local authorities have used that process. There are three, but there are two other big. CABE is the second biggest one. So most of the approved inspectors would have gone through the CABE route. And that's a slightly different route in that you don't sit an exam, you submit a portfolio, and you then do a professional interview. And my understanding is there is a significant backlog in that particular validation process because they haven't been able to physically get through them, which is partly the reason why we've had this delay till July, because they're still going through that process. So they're having to do this, and come the 6th of July, if they haven't got a registration, then they will not be able to oversee that work. That's what building regulates. So it is from that point of view, it's being set up as a level playing field. So what as part of the checking process that we do as a local authority, when we receive an initial notice, what they've introduced is that they have to, the approved inspector has to name the person that's overseeing the work, and that person has to be on the building safety regulators list as having that competence for that work. At the moment they don't, because they've delayed it until the 6th of July. So when we receive an initial notice, we're already doing this check, but it's not actually into place until the 6th. They are sending this information to us. So but after the 6th of July, if we receive an initial notice without details of the person, and then we check on the register to see that they are competent, we'll check it, we'll check the initial notice. So I mean, it is being set up, but I think that they've clearly delayed it because there's just not capacity in the system to get everybody through.
So behind it, I'm asking you, do we have the capacity to exploit any weaknesses and vulnerabilities?
I mean, I think we are in as stronger a position as we can be in terms of, we obviously aren't fully staffed, and obviously the new recruits that we're bringing in won't be qualified, and we will have to work with them to get them to the position where they are. And so if we were audited, it's always going to be a fluid situation. We're never probably ever going to be fully staffed, and you're always going to have staff that move on. So we're always going to have to train and build up and expect a few of them to leave. But in terms of our market share, I see no reason for us losing our market share because of the regulator position. There doesn't appear to be a mass interest in our market, as we have reported on previously, that we perhaps thought that because the approved inspectors were going to lose the high-rise market. Really, it's only the high-rise market in terms of residential. The offices and the commercial sort of enterprises, they can still oversee. It's only if it involves 2 or more residential units or a hospital or care home that they can't touch. That's got to go through the regulator, and will come back to the local authority via the scheme that I described about the multidisciplinary teams. So I'm not sure there's any advantage to be taken. I think our position is no weaker than it was previously. I mean, locally, on a national level, Stroma, one of the big approved inspectors in the market, has actually taken over JHAI, which was quite a big player in terms of approved inspectors in the southwest. But the reports that we're getting from, people are actually coming back to us because of that. People are no longer using Stroma because they don't want to use Stroma. They're coming back to us where perhaps previously they were using JHAI. Time will tell, I guess.
Yes.
I've got a couple of notes as well from what I was reading, which kept me awake, like some of us. I'll just start with a couple of notes, please. Put my glasses on properly. So KPIs, obviously, like you said, about the 40 of them, but then also I read somewhere about the ISOs. Well, the ISOs, which ones are they going to be? Have they mentioned what they are? Standards?
We've got. I mean, obviously, the key performance indicators are basically written off the back of the standards. So
that'll be the ISOs. So which ones are you taking from then?
In terms of
the ISOs?
You have to do both. The BSR KPIs and the ISO.
Yes.
So you're going to do the whole lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So
I mean, to be honest with you, they haven't released any information about this yet.
That's the gist of from this.
It's kind of in the dark.
Yeah.
So we basically they released a document to say these are the areas that we're going to be measuring local authorities and private building control practices against So that's the areas that we've focused on in terms of the spreadsheets to capture information, preparation to submit that information to them.
Seems to be a lot of unknowns so far, haven't there?
Absolutely.
I read a report from the LABC chair, Lorna, yeah, and she wasn't very happy either, generally, was she? To cut a long story short. Because, I mean, I'll drone on a little bit more, sorry. Resources, is the levy funded? What levy is that from then? Is that the government funded levy then?
For the degree, yes.
Yeah, because when I read it, I thought, what levy is that then? Because obviously CITB do a levy in the construction industry, so I wondered where it was connected to that. But it's a government funded levy.
It is, yeah.
Right.
It is. Yeah, I mean, we already have. Well, we've had, since I've been here, we've had a trainee that actually left for another authority go through that process, and our current trainee, well, he's not our current trainee because he progressed to a surveying role. He's actually still going through the final year of his degree on that levy degree.
Sorry, John. Yeah.
Different levies, isn't it? Yeah. So we as an authority obviously pay, or both authorities pay in 0.5% of their payroll into the apprenticeship levy.
Yeah. Is that through the government, CIT or CITB?
Through total payroll. So both North Devon and Mid Devon will pay 0.5% of their total payroll into the levy.
For training courses.
Training courses.
Yeah.
Some authorities don't use their levy, but we make sure we maximise.
Yeah.
To make sure the training can be applied to posts such as these to maximise the training opportunity. So we're paying for it anyway. It's important to make sure that we maximise the use of the levy.
Yeah, because obviously the construction industry does the same.
Yeah.
And half the industry, because I'm just getting involved quite heavily with the CITB, setting up a training course funded by the CITB, set up business with it, hopefully. And there's nobody in North Devon that trains through the CITB anymore. Not even the college. So, but you talked about staffing overtime. Because I read through all this, one thing I get is workload, because there's massive qualifications that all the staff have got to get now, which is high level of qualifications for what the pay is. I'm not being derogative about anything at all there. I'm being quite the opposite. And I think that pay level is quite low compared to the qualification level. And the extra sort of stress and commitment that the staff need to do to get the admin side of it done, is it feasible to have an admin staff?
Yeah, I think that's something that we would potentially need to look at when we do know exactly what the impact of producing this additional information will be. Yeah. We may have to increase the administration and perhaps remove some of that administration element away from this professional staff.
So they can get back out there. Yeah. And then, because even, for example, paying the overtime rate at the moment, whatever it might be, £5 an hour, what's minimum wage? Yeah, £11.50 or whatever it is at the moment. But my point is that paying the overtime at this, I know it's a temporary, maybe long term, but it's a temporary fix. That would probably be the equivalent of a member of staff for admin. The other thing was, I made a lot of lists, but I'm not going to read them all out. But the hospitals, etc., over the heights and etc., they've got to go, from what I read, they've got to go to the local authority then. Is that correct? Or can they go private as well?
No, so if you have a hospital building or an extension to part of the hospital, a new part of the hospital it's over 18 metres wide, then they have to submit an application to the Building Safety Regulator. They can't come to us.
That's what I was wondering.
But in effect, the Building Safety Regulator will then build a team, presumably locally, that will then oversee that building.
Yeah, that was the thing that I couldn't quite make out really, was, it goes through the BSR, but then the BSR would actually then allocate it, or do they decide?
They would allocate it. So at the moment, the BSR are setting up teams around the country. They have not approached us yet. They are setting, presumably, they're probably focusing on the areas that have got the most high-rise buildings. We don't really have.
No. Probably the hospital is one of the few.
Yeah, well, the hospital is saying that they're under 18 metres. So,
Depends where you measure it from, probably.
yeah. Yeah, we did obviously, because we had applications in flight, that were gonna, there was gonna transition, there was a transitional provision put in on the 1st of October, for anything that you had an application for had to be passed a certain position of progress, 15% progress. And if it wasn't at that point, you had to revert it back to the building safety regulator and then start again, which was work in progress. But obviously we went to the BSR and told them about the applications that we got at the hospital, consulted with the hospital as well, and the hospital have confirmed to the BSR that they're under 18 months.
I'm not surprised at that, yeah.
Yeah,
But I'd
it's
go there,
very,
might take-
it's very close.
I was going to say, I'd like to get there with my take
It's
measure.
very
But yeah, I think that's about it really. Because I'd just like to sort of give recognition about how difficult it is for yourselves, because you can see how organised or unorganised things are so far. The extension loan, that proves how far behind BSR, which is they're linked to the HSE, aren't they, technically?
Yeah.
So, and they are underfunded and they're always running behind. So that's going to be part of the problem, I think. And they, as we know, the HSE are, and how you read it, but 25 to 30% self-funding they're meant to be, aren't they? So I think that I wish you all the very best with getting it sorted, and I hope that they do get it right for us, because we need that information. You need that information. And to not have that system running properly is desperate. And it's just one sign of many others, unfortunately, it seems to me. But yeah, no, that report was brilliant. Thanks, Andy. Any other questions?
Just going to add, Chelsea, the financial information you normally receive at this committee will come to the next meeting. So you look at a trading account for the outturn for the last financial year.
Right.
That's not ready yet because we already just closed the financial year. So
I thought there was one about this term, wasn't there?
that's
as well?
right. So
Yeah.
normally you'd get the outturn figures because the papers need to be produced to ago. We've only just closed the financial year, so that will follow to your next meeting. But as Andy's already alluded to, the income in the last quarter seems to be higher than what was projected at the last trading account. So that should hopefully provide a more positive financial position for the outturn when that's reported.
We are still running a loss, aren't we?
We are, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully that loss will be improved from what was being projected at quarter 3. So, and I think as Andy alluded to, our reliance on agency staff now is less than it was for the last financial year. So moving into 24-25, we should be in a more stronger position financially for the staffing budget. Obviously, we've got the overtime position we just talked about, which obviously will provide a short-term cost. But the income projections are obviously in line with what we originally were anticipating. So hopefully the financial picture should be more positive than it was at the quarter 3 position. I think, as you've alluded to in your summary, Andy, put the team into a positive position as they can be, the recruitment side of things, in terms of only having one vacant post now, and to have 5 out of the 6 inspectors validated, and also to put the systems in place to record all that data. There's been a significant amount of work by Andy and the team. I'm sure Richard echoes my comments as well in terms of thanking Andy for the amount of work that him and the team have done in the last quarter.
Yeah, massive. Yeah.
I had some questions on the finances. I was going to wait for you before, but again, just because I'm new to this. So what is the income of the years? I noticed it's about 150 for the last quarter. So is it?
Yeah. So the
600.
I haven't got the figures for 24-25, but the budgeted figures for 23-24 were just under 400,000 from North Devon and about 270,000 from Mid Devon. So in total, you're talking about sort of 670k worth of income for the whole year. So as I said, around 150, 160 a quarter.
Yeah.
I'd like to just add to that, very sort of related, is that it was very disappointing about the government's the regulations that came in. They weren't really sort of pro the local authority, were they, for charges and things like that. I think that they could have done much better and helped us a lot more with that side of things for the whole of the industry, really. So it's not completely our doing.
So so you're on the KPIs, your figures as a cumulative, are they? It's not, we haven't lost 91 thousand this quarter and
That's the net financial position, I think.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
53 the quarter before, but it's the net. It's the position. Oh, right, okay.
I mean, at quarter three, the total outturn projection for North Devon was about 190,000, and we budgeted 120,000 cost. So
Okay,
for North Devon, we were about 60 or 70k over budget. Mid Devon's out quarter three was projecting 97, and the budget was 43, so again about 50k over budget. But at quarter four, hopefully that outturn projection will hopefully be a bit lower, so
Yeah.
a bit closer to the budget that we were originally forecasting.
I think that would be what we just touched on earlier. It'd be really interesting to know what the competition do charge. Always, that would be helpful for our competition to be competitive, because, and for our financial position potentially, because if we are 80% on average, of all works, then construction industry, as we know, goes for price and cost. So obviously we know we are cost competitive, but it'd be nice to know what margins they are, wouldn't it? We need an ex-colleague of mine from college, who's an ex-colleague of yours, I was talking to the other day. I won't say his name.
Okay.
Tall chap. And it's quite interesting what he was saying about finance and stuff, wages and things like that, but he didn't say about charges and things. But I might have to time him up on a chair or something.
I think the key measure, I think, as Andy alluded to earlier, that sort of market share and quality of service, because I think obviously
Absolutely.
cost and charge is one thing, but the market will pay where they get the response and the quality of service that they want. So cost comparison is important.
There's lots of
It's that level of service and responsiveness, and retaining that market share is the key thing, I think, for partnership.
You're right. So, because the service is a big thing, because I've been in the industry all my life, and I have experienced the private industry, and I will say that the service that LABC related businesses give is far superior. And I would say that some businesses don't really want to meet those targets, go private. Sometimes.
I'm hopeful that the new regime will create a bit more of a level playing field, as long as the regulator has teeth. Because obviously the approved inspectors will have to provide a service. They will have to visit sites. And a geographical location in the southwest doesn't make us attractive to an approved inspector, because we're so spread out.
And it's too I mean, from my experience on private providers, one of the main reasons why people would go private was when it was on Exmoor, that they could just send photos and things like that, and just give a rough idea about what happened, which was accepted. And so that hopefully will disappear. And like you said, I think that this is quite good, very good for us potentially, as far as leveling up the market. And I'd like to see the results of it in long term.
And then it says, again, speaking from the other end, which I've got experience of, I mean, one of the reasons why clients go for approved inspectors sometimes is it's not just the cost, because it is cheap. Obviously, look at your figures, then knock it off. But it's also the front end support sometimes makes it a lot more flexible in terms of providing an advisory service as part of a design team, rather than a gateway service, which is sort of what the local authority building inspectors do.
I mean, I think over a number of years we have moved to be offering free advice up front. We still do that. But the way that the rules are being written by the regulator, that they want both private and local authority building control to step back from them.
Yeah.
And they're very much pushing the design back on the owner, and the owner's professionals. We have to be very careful under the new performance standards not to give advice, just steer them in the direction of where they look to find the right answers, but not actually end up designing it for them.
Well, that's going to be helpful.
So that should help level, as long as everybody's playing the book by book, and that should be enough. And clearly, if improved inspectors just go back a step, if improved inspectors are having to provide a service and are having to do the same 5 physical visits that we have to do, their costs go up. So they can't undercut us in the same way that they have. So they shouldn't.
We probably do have there's a risk as well, though, Andy, isn't there, in terms of our fee chargeable work versus our non-fee chargeable work, is there, in terms of the where you have to take proactive enforcement action and the like. So probably just the other thing we need to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Fee for our income
Yeah.
is we, if that goes up significantly, fortunately we're going to see more costs without the income.
Yeah.
So bits are leveling up, aren't they? And then it feels like we're still getting the tardy end of the stick in terms of then having to go up and mop up everybody else's problems, really.
I mean, these things that could be offered, like expanding the service, which is already sort of possible, is like the engineering side of it and things like that, potentially.
I think
Because they are qualified, they will be qualified as
Yeah.
engineers, won't they?
they're not structural engineers,
They're not structural.
so no, that would be a separate qualification. I think the regulator's been quite clear that they're not wanting local authority. They want us to be a regulator, not a service provider.
Right.
So I think if you were to do that, you'd almost have to set up a separate arm of a company. You're outside of a local authority setup then. Because not so you couldn't do it. I don't think you could do it as a local authority.
And we did probably 18 months ago, 2 years ago now, start to contemplate whether that thought process was worthwhile. And actually, I think outside of my skill set, but I think with the various VAT applications and the like, you quite quickly tip into that looks hard work for probably more cost.
Probably just more hard work, minimal gain, but more actually a cost.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's I'm just trying to think of the situation where we're in. It is about sort of bringing in income. You know, so, but yeah,
So the team of your admin team now, Andy, given that you've now got one, have started mailing out again, haven't they, proactively to try and boost the market share again on the back of planning consensus?
Yeah. So obviously one of the things that I meant to touch on there and I didn't was we've received now the results of the internal audit. There were 3 or 4 recommendations in that. One of them was to go back to off the back of the planning list to write to to prospective customers and the service office and advice. So we've reintroduced that.
you can advertise them.
Yeah, I don't know if that's advertising, but it's advertising. But And the other thing that they suggested that we introduced was our customer survey. So we sent out a customer survey with a completion certificate. Like a survey.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, historically we've had very few responses.
Elderly thing, really, I think.
It goes to the homeowner.
Oh, the homeowner. Oh, right.
But I think with the new process in place, the idea of this, the new regime introducing this duty holder notification, as we've discussed before, right at the outset, the owner has to fill out a declaration on the application form to tell us that they are the duty holder, and at completion, they have to sign something to say, as far as they're concerned, where their application and their work has the building regulations. So it's engaging a bit more. We might see a little bit more of an uptake in the service.
It gives the owner more responsibility as well. I mean, I think insurances are going to come into this as well, from what I've heard as well.
I think that those responsibilities have always been there. Nobody's really taken a lot of notice on that.
Nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
Because, I know we might go off to you a little bit, but I know that I read some time ago that insurance companies wanted to know that part of their responsibility to the customer was to make sure that they were registered builders, that did extensions, etc. Make sure that everybody were regulated within their workplace, part of insurance. So that's nice to hear in that respect, because really there's no law technically that would say that somebody who did an extension has to be qualified, which is a massive flaw.
And I think the intention of the government is to eventually regulate architects and potentially builders.
I think they should be. They don't have gas and electric, so they should do it with.
I think they will
Yeah,
have some sort of licensing system for contractors.
Yeah, and I think that's where the building insurance companies were sort of heading, was that sort of information and that sort of thing.
Good thing.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Sorry, so I've just logged me out. Sorry. So number 8. Are we moving on to?
Sorry, Chair, we just need to note that report, please, that we've just had.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we'll note that report, please, and
We just have a mover and a seconder,
I'll
please.
move.
thank you.
All those in favour? Thank you.
Okay, number 8. Dates and locations of future meetings. We agree these meetings at all, anybody?
They're just the ones that have been set for the forthcoming year.
Yeah, that's right.
I
Yeah.
just put
I've
them
got
on.
in my diary, but
I put them on just in case anything changes in anyone's diary,
Yeah.
so I just do it for every meeting,
Yeah,
just to make sure everyone's
Let's
happy.
select. I knew they was already there because I checked mine. I thought, oh, I've already written them down. Okay, so, and there's no part B?
No.
So, going to that, is that,
That's the end of the meeting, Chair.
yeah, so any other business? No?
Don't do any business.
No, any other business? No, okay.
Before we close the meeting, Chair.
Yeah, okay, well, we should close this meeting
Thank
then.
you.
Thank you.